Mental Health Monday with Mick Coyle.
Radio City Talk.
Thanks for joining us once again for another edition of Mental Health Monday. Thanks to everybody who offered us some brilliant feedback. The conversation we had last week with Jane Boland from James's Place, and we'll continue to deliver Mental Health Monday throughout the current lockdown process. And we were here before, we will be here after. What we're going to do over the coming weeks is speak to some real big names from the world of mental health to get a real insight into maybe the helps that's still out there for people, the opportunities that people will have in these strange times when those mental health services may be required more than ever. With that in mind, your friend and mine, Jake Mills, joins us for this week's edition of Mental Health Monday from Chasing the Stigma, and a man who's played an incredible role in our Mental Health Monday journey. Jake, thank you for your time. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. I'm comfortable. I've got a cup of coffee, sat on the couch, locked the kids away, so it's ideal.
Excellent stuff. Do you want me to just drag this conversation out so that you can enjoy that little time you've got to yourself?
Yeah, I've actually told my 4-year-old son that I'm on a call with the police, just because if I say the radio, he's going to want to be on it. So I've said I'm on a call with the police because this is what you got to do. You got to find a way through.
Hey mate, we're all winging it. We are indeed. Now, Jake, you set up Chasing the Stigma and, of course, the Hub of Hope, which we signpost at the end of every programme on Mental Health Monday, to point people in the direction of mental health services. First and foremost, I've got to ask you, we hear, don't we, that people are being negatively impacted by the coronavirus crisis, concerns of stress and anxiety, a changing world in which we're living in at the moment. Have you seen that reflected in the Hub of Hope and the number of people who've been reaching out for services?
Yeah, massively. So we've actually just done a piece of work looking into this a little bit more. And we've actually realised that there's been a huge spike that has correlated almost perfectly with government announcements. So and last week, in the days between the Prime Minister's first daily briefing and school closures, the Hub of Hope actually had a 228% increase in traffic. And on last Monday alone, we registered a 248% jump in users. So quite clearly, people are reacting to the news and are looking for help and support. I can't say that I'm surprised. We don't envisage that those numbers are going to massively reduce over the next coming weeks and months. And quite honestly, we are anticipating walking into a real mental health crisis during and at the end of this whole situation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, and I guess as well, the mental health impact on this one, for anyone who's felt, and I've had this myself, sometimes I get a sense of absolute, soaring horror. Literally like it's like end of days. And it lasts for a couple of seconds before I then go, actually, I'm okay, I've got my family here, we're well, we're able to look after each other, we've got food in the cupboards, the kids are absolutely fine, I've got good connections with other family members. And I have this sort of almost like a blissful acceptance appearance as well. But I think we've all been through this in the last few weeks, the roller coaster, the highs and the lows, even when you think, well, I'm doing all right for myself. If you spend too much time thinking about the plight of other people, when you start hearing about death tolls coming out of different countries, it is almost overwhelming what we're having to deal with at the moment.
It is, and I think there's a couple of angles to be looking at this and talking about this. On one hand, we have people who, like what you're describing there, who don't necessarily have any history of mental health problems, who are receiving help and support and have never felt any of these feelings before, and suddenly they're feeling anxiety, they're feeling stress, they're feeling worry, and that's one whole problem in itself. That people suddenly now going, I'm starting this journey and I don't know where to turn to for help, and I don't know what to do and how to control and manage this. Hopefully, a lot of those people who do have that kind of the family, the relationships, the support are able to overcome that. But on the other hand, we've got people who are dependent on mental health services, on support, people who are living with conditions or have had previous conditions that suddenly are being flared up because of this, and the support isn't necessarily there. If you think about isolation, that we talk about regularly on this program, about isolation being one of the biggest contributing factors to somebody's mental health deteriorating, and suddenly we're being told to isolate, to be in a house on our own. People who maybe live alone, people who the only kind of social thing was to go to work, and suddenly you're having a cut, and all those ties are cut now. And as I said, with mental health services as well, a lot of services, are looking at ways to think of new ways of doing it and offering virtual and telephone support. But a lot of services are having to stop, particularly the ones that we often talk about on this show, the likes of Sean's Place and Paul's Place and places like that, which are often, particularly with Sean's Place, where it's peer-led and it's just groups of people coming together. Suddenly they're stopping, and we're going to have a huge problem here. We really are, and that's why we need to be doing a lot more to be reaching out into people, and we're trying to do that. And we're making a point of saying, just because you're in isolation doesn't mean that you are isolated, and we need to be reaching out to people in the mediums that we have, whether that's through the radio, whether that's through video calls, texting. But now is more important than ever to reach out to the people around you who you might be concerned about, and literally just ask that question: are you okay?
I was going to ask you about the Hub of Hope. People sort of find services close to them. Presumably those services are doing their best to communicate their offer at the moment. Is that something that you've been made aware of, that if there are services that are shifted into an online format, maybe they're being signposted through those services on the Hub of Hope? I'd hate for people to go on there, try and find a service, and then find that the service that might be the difference to them actually has closed its doors and there's nothing available to them.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult for us at the moment because almost every service that exists has been affected in some way. So we've now got a message on there, and we're getting a message out to anyone to say, if you are looking on the Hub of Hope and you do find support, make sure that you contact the service directly to find out what their current situation is. But we're about to next week embark on a campaign to try and get people registered on there who offer specifically online virtual phone support, and we're going to have a search option for COVID-19 to try and get that support out there, so that people can specifically look for support that they can access now, not waiting until we're allowed to go back outside. So we're making moves to do that now.
Excellent. Do you know when that's going to be ready? When will people be able to find out those services and where they are?
As soon as we possibly can. We're doing it as we're going now.
Excellent stuff, and we'll point people in the direction of that as and when that's possible too. Jake Mills is with us from Chasing the Stigma, the founder of the Hub of Hope. hubofhope.co.uk is the website. There's an app as well that you can find on your Android and iOS devices. In terms of where we're at the moment, Jake, because there's so many unknowns, there are so many unknowns about so many different things, whether it's our finances, whether it's our ability to see loved ones, whether it's our ability to, have employment by the time the summers come around. There's one thing not knowing if Wimbledon's on. There's another thing not knowing if you're going to see your mum between now and when Wimbledon would normally be finishing as well. And those sort of levels of uncertainty, I kind of get a sense that they can really build up in people, that we might cope with one setback or one little misunderstanding or lack of knowledge. But when it builds up across so many things, it can become overwhelming for some, I'm sure.
I would say it becomes overwhelming for most, if I'm being totally honest with you. We like to know what's ahead of us. As humans, as human beings, we like to know what's ahead of us. And, many of us are creatures of habit, and suddenly everything that we've ever known has changed. Life as we know it has changed. And we like to have a certain level of certainty around our lives, even though actually nothing is ever certain. But that uncertainty is what is kind of, I'd say, the biggest thing that's coming from this. And yeah, it's kind of, I think the difference in this is that everybody is in the same boat, and that's good and bad, because sometimes we go looking for answers of people, and I think this is the first time any of us have ever been in a situation when nobody's got answers, but we're literally all working this out as we can. And as you said, it's absolutely every aspect of life, from health to employment to relationships to absolutely everything. To be perfectly honest with you, Mick, what we're trying to do at Chasing the Stigma, and we're being as open as we possibly can with this, is we're trying to work it out as we go, like what everybody else is doing. And we're talking to employers, we're talking to financial people, we're talking to everyone to get as much information as we possibly can to make it easier for people to find that information. Just this morning, we've hosted a virtual round table meeting with employers who have done the Ambassador Hope training program, and we brought them together. So that's been people like Everton Football Club, like First Arc, like the DBS, and bringing them together to say what's the problems? What's the problems that you're seeing with your staff? What's the problems that you're seeing as a company? And how can we learn from each other? And I think that's what we've got to do. We've got to start learning from each other now, and be as open as we can. So we're working on it, but we're working it out as we go. But I found the Chasing the Stigma to be a voice for people. We aren't claiming to be anything other than a representative of people. So anything that anybody's got, they can come to us and they can be asking us, and we can go and find the answers.
Because I think that's an interesting sort of way of looking at it, that, occasionally be right. On day one, a lot of people going, what about people's mental health? Which is, a perfectly legitimate question to ask. But you've got to ask it on day one. But you've also got to ask it presumably on day 61 and on day 101 potentially as well. Because some people might go, well, so what about mental health? It's only the second day. We're coping maybe. The garden, the weather's nice at the moment. So, there's jobs I can be doing. It's got to be an ongoing conversation, because the need might not necessarily be there in the first instance. It might be something that emerges in 3, 4, 5 months' time, when suddenly there's a huge demand for it, which is, I guess, why we've got to constantly sort of engage with the state of the nation and how we're feeling at the moment.
Absolutely. And I think you've just said it there, is that, we've talked on this programme plenty of times about the lack of services that are kind of out there, and how much needs to change within the system for mental health support. And suddenly we're going to be, and this is why we're talking about potentially having a mental health crisis at the end of this, or part of this, because there's going to be so many more people who are needing help there and then, and even less support than what's out there now. And I know that governments are looking at creating, they have created a funding pot, looking at how they can get digital access to people for mental health. But as you said then, right now, in all honesty, it's still a bit of a novelty. It's still a bit of a novelty for people. It's still, working from home. It's all a little bit exciting. Everything's new. But you know what? Soon, and the weather's nice, but soon that novelty will wear off. But as soon as the weather changes, you can't be going out for walks, you can't be out in the garden. For people who don't even have gardens or anything like that, this is going to be a huge shock to the system, to pretty much everybody. And mental health has to be at the top of the priority list now. If you're telling people to stay at home and stay away, and those people who have or haven't been infected by the virus, we need to be talking about their mental health. It's got to be at the top of the priority list.
Jane Boland was on from James's Place last week, said something really interesting, Jake, and she was talking about the fact that many people maybe won't be physically impacted by coronavirus, and for many people, their interaction with the coronavirus, the impact on them will be very much on their mental health. That's a really interesting way of looking at a physical and a biological threat to us as human beings. But of course, absolutely, our mental health is so key in that, because that's the thing that judges whether we worry about something, whether we worry about other people, whether or not we have anxiety about the impacts that it will have on us potentially, the anxiety and the things that we will go through if we hear about it getting maybe closer to home, impacting on the lives of elderly people around us who we can't make a physical connection with. anymore. And to me, that really just drove home the message that mental health walks hand in hand in every aspect of our life these days.
Of course it does, and if we're going to be, we're talking quite a lot about quite negative things here, and I think rightly so, because there is a danger here. But I think if we're going to take any positive from this, I think that maybe that message is going to be a lot clearer for people. It's not just about mental health. Is not just about kind of depression and anxiety and all those different things that we talk about widely. It's actually about the day to day. It's about positive mental health, and yes, it completely aligns with physical health. And just to completely simplify it, if you have a panic attack, or if you're anxious about something, if you have a panic attack, every single symptom is physical. Everything is physical. You sweat, your heart rate, everything is physical, and that is oversimplifying it, but that's to show that connection between the two is completely one of the same. When we talk about being in isolation, not only are you kind of cut off from the world and everything else, but I think we're going to end up with a problem of people who are out of shape, both physically and mentally, when they come out of this, with a lot of people potentially drinking quite heavily. And I've seen it, and I do hope it changes, where I've seen people almost dealing with this situation as if it's that week between Christmas and New Year, where you're just eating everything and drinking everything, and it's a bit of fun. That's all well and good for that first week, but actually for the long term of this could be months. We can't continue like that. So the physical and mental health are one of the same. We've got to be talking about it in the same sentence constantly.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know about you, Jay, but I've had quite a few messages from people, friends, people I've not maybe seen for a while. And it's been a message of, hey, just checking in on you, just checking you're doing okay. Now, they know that I'd be capable of going out to the shops. I'm not elderly or vulnerable. I can go and get milk and bread and toilet roll if there's any available. But I also got a sense they weren't asking me if I had symptoms of coronavirus. What they were doing they were having that really normal conversation that we've been talking about for years and years and years. Hey, I'm just wondering how you're feeling. I'm just checking in to make sure you're all right. And it's maybe taken that national crisis for them to do that. But I kind of thought, oh, actually, my friends are all right. They've got my back. They're looking out for me. I've got people who care about how I'm feeling in this particular moment.
Exactly. What you've just described there is exactly the reason why that is so important, to just send that quick little message. But you've just felt secure that you've got and almost comforted that you've got people looking out for you. And that's why it's important just to do that. It takes nothing. And you know what? Often we think it's a bit awkward, and we think, oh, I don't really talk like this, and I don't really ask people if they're okay, and I don't really, as a group of lads, we don't really say, are you all right? But you know what? No one's been in this situation before, so everything's out the window. Get over that awkwardness. Ask somebody if they're okay. Let them know that you are there, and together work it out together. Be there for each other. It's never been more important to reach out to anybody who you are worried about, whether that's family, whether that's friends, whether that's a work colleague, anyone. Keep in touch with people. Let them know that you're there, and let them know that you might need help as well. And as well, when we're talking about particularly working from home, and what I would say to all employers and everything, make sure that the conversations that you're having with any of your staff aren't just work related. Have little conversations on text or on video calls that can just be about actually them, and talk to them. It doesn't have to always be about work. We've got to manage expectations here. And again, just to make a point on particularly for work, I know different organisations are different, but everything has gone out the window. And I know for me and with my staff, I've basically said, we're not counting hours here. We're work when you can work, because we've got to be able to adapt to this situation. So it's being open and transparent with your employees and your colleagues as well.
One of the things that I noticed as well in regard to that communication that people have, particularly with people maybe working from home, the number of people I know who live on their own And when that lockdown came in play the other day, that was basically stopping them from having a human connection with anyone for an unspecified period of time. You know, people who live in a flat, maybe in town, who live in one part of the world and normally commute into a different part of the world. But now it's just them at home on their own. And, you know, you and I are both lucky you're able to, you know, go home. They'll be at home with family, and you kind of got your own little crew around you. There are plenty of people now who suddenly now won't get to see another human being. Certainly won't have a human contact with another human being beyond that 2 meter ruling for an unspecified amount of time. And I think, God blimey, that I would, you know, some people, you know, one of my mates texted me to say, to be honest, he said, I've been preparing my whole life for this, making light of it. But I thought, you know, in a month's time, he's really going to need a conversation there over a Skype, or even, you know, if I make my exercise, you know, a walk past his house to go and stand outside his front door to give him a quick chat through the window. But there'll be plenty of people in that situation.
Honestly, this is like a prison sentence to a lot of people. As you said, you know, we're lucky. I'm incredibly lucky here, where I've been able to, because the weather's nice, and I've been out in the garden with my kids, with my wife. We've, you know, we're making the most out of this. But as you said, not everybody is in that situation, and it is a prison sentence to a lot of people to say, yeah, that's it. You're in those four walls, and that is it. And just trying to imagine what that must feel like for people gives you a little bit of an insight into how important it is just to reach out to them, to have a video chat, to be able to just to text them, just to say, you know, just talk about anything. You don't even necessarily need to be asking, you know, having a really serious conversation. Just be talking, just have that constant contact with people, because we need each other more than we've ever needed each other right now. And whether that's having a virtual pint with each other, or it's just having just a general chat, we've got to be reaching out to people now.
It's interesting you use that phrase, a prison sentence. I had a really, really eye-opening conversation with a couple of individuals on the program last week, talking about domestic violence. And unfortunately, just this first week or so of lockdown has seen a spike in domestic violence. People whose opportunity to get out of the house was their break, was their release from maybe an abusive relationship. And when lockdown came, you had to essentially return to your homes and, you know, hunker down for this period of time. But for some people, returning to a family home meant returning to an abusive relationship. And you think, oh, blimey, the very worst of people emerging during these times. But the fear, the terror that those people will have, the misery that they'll have to go through or feel like they had to go through in making that connection to move home, to put your family back into that situation, having, you know, potentially broken that bond. The people I was speaking to, both the police and the council, were saying, you know, coronavirus hasn't ended everything else. The rules are still there. You don't have to remain in a house with somebody who is domestically abusing you. You don't have to live in fear in your own home. You're allowed to make connections with those services through the police, through the local council, through those charities. They will still listen and they will still respond. Coronavirus isn't the be-all and end-all of everything at the moment. It feels important, but your own personal safety has got to be absolutely guaranteed. And that might be from a domestic violence point of view, but also for people who are feeling like they're in an emergency situation with potentially suicidal thoughts. The 999 number is still there for an emergency, and it will always be there. It's why it's such a great service. We're not really hearing about that at the moment, but again, coronavirus isn't the everything for everybody. We've got to remember that, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the advice that is out there, it's easy to get lost in, because, you know, the advice is stay away from hospitals, stay away from this. But yes, you are absolutely right. That number, those services are still there. If you are worried about somebody, if you are in danger or somebody else is in danger, you absolutely still follow that protocol. You still call 999. You get yourself or that person help and support. That hasn't changed. It's incredibly difficult, and the situations that you're describing are beyond anything that I could even imagine and pretend to try and imagine, really. But what I will say to everybody and anybody who's listening to this, who's struggling, whether that is people who are dependent on mental health services, people who are worrying about the jobs, people who are just don't know what's going on and anxious about it, there will be an end to this. there is going to be an end to this, and we all have to be looking after each other right now, and we will get through this together. There will be an end. There's nothing more certain than that. There will be an end to this, and we've just got to get through it.
What a great show. I think, Jake, as well, as much as anything, you look at the way some of the businesses have handled this crisis, the way certain people have been speaking through this crisis. I think what's oh so important is that whenever that end is and, reality resumes, I think we all need to be able to look at each other in the eye and say, you know what, when times were tough, we were there for each other. If we're not being that person yet, then maybe we can be that person tomorrow. We can start tomorrow by making those calls. There'll be plenty of people out there who need help, and there'll be plenty of people who will think, well, they don't need help from me. But actually, I guess now is an opportunity. If you want to be the difference, volunteering for the NHS, if you want to make that connection with, the old lady next door who used to, keep your footballs when they went over, but now she might actually need you. We can be those people right now, so that when we get to maybe Christmas of this year, whoever knows when that's going to be, we can go, all right, we went through that and we did okay. We can look at each other in the eye, we can smile, and we can all move on together.
Yeah, and we can hug. We can shake hands, we can hug, we can actually embrace each other, and I think that's going to be amazing when we're able to actually go. It's like, for many people, it's like pressing a reset button and it's starting again. It's actually taking time out to look at yourself, to look at others, to look at your behaviour, to look at the way that we live, and change those type of things. But yeah, I think you're right. I think one thing that we're probably going to see from this is new ways of doing things, which is really important, and reaching out to people. But we're going to see comfort. Hopefully, I certainly hope we're going to take comfort in how we've all been able to adapt together, how we can be able to learn to help each other and see communities working for each other again. And often lives are so busy that we don't appreciate what we've got around us. And hopefully that's what we'll be able to do through this.
Absolutely. The Hub of Hope is still available. There's connections on there to the Shout network as well. The Samaritans numbers are on there too. And Jake, the numbers, as you say, are spiked with those prime ministerial briefings, and I'm sure that those sort of issues will continue to arise. The Hub of Hope is there, hubofhope.co.uk. The services you access may have changed the way they operate slightly, but they still absolutely want you to get in touch. And Jake, as ever, a pleasure to get you on the programme. What else is keeping you busy at Chasing the Stigma? 1,001 different things, I imagine.
Everything at the moment. We are working this out as we're going, and we're going to be releasing quite a few things over the next week or so to help people. What we would say, two things: if anybody wants to get involved and help us and to volunteer for us, or got any ideas of anything that they think they can offer to people, let us know. Get in touch, info@chasingthestigma.co.uk. And just a final point to make, that if anybody is struggling at any point, you can text HOPE to 85258. That's HOPE to 85258 for free confidential support, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, anytime. It won't show up on phone bills. There's always help out there. There's always hope.
Jake Mills, thank you for your time. Appreciate you, as ever, joining us on the programme.
Thank you.
That wraps up this week's edition of Mental Health Monday. As ever, thank you for your support. During this time, we will continue doing Mental Health Monday as long as we can. Basically, I'm still here in a radio studio doing the show, and that will continue for the foreseeable future. So do continue to support the programme if you can. My email address never changes, mick@radiocity.co.uk.
Mental Health Monday with Mick Coyle.
Radio City Talk.